Was there another question, Chad?
Yes, we have a few stacked up.
Okay.
I'm going to ask, there's two questions from one poster. I'll ask the first one first and then wait. What happened in your life that made you a cartoonist?
What terrible thing happened to me that I had decided to pick up the pen and, well, I don't know if we have enough time for this therapy session right now, but no, I grew up drawing, and when I was 5 years old, I would just sit down and draw and I remember creating like characters out of like monkeys in Madagascar. I remember getting books of zoology from my parents and just wanting to draw them. And I was drawn to things in life. So I had that background where I loved that. And then throughout high school and going into college, I started getting slowly hooked into current events. And I never thought I wanted to be a political cartoonist. I wanted to go for computer science and math. I was trying to sort of blend both sides of my brain to do computer graphics, where I wanted to think critically, use mathematics and come up with visuals. So use both sides. And it wasn't really like that. I mean, in software engineering, you have the technical people and then you have the artists, and you kind of work as a team, but you don't really do both. And when I was going to school at Canisius for that, I would join the school paper and just for fun. And my honors English professor talked me into it. And I just got addicted to the weekly cartoon, this process of controlling this little space of, where I could say whatever I wanted to. And I started understanding the responsibility that came with that when I was pissing off people around campus. And I started criticizing certain things, poking fun at things around campus and getting blowback, getting feedback. And so I loved the interaction, the free speech, the voice component of that. And at some point when I was a senior, I thought I'll do my honors thesis on this instead of computer engineering. And just, what the hell, it's fun. I love it. It's a passion. And one thing led to another. And that was the start of, a career. So.
Yeah, childhood trauma was the answer. So there you go.
Official answer, childhood trauma. Notice how I tried to cover that.
Yeah, you brushed right over that, No. Yeah, I think, for many of us, it's an escape, so I think anybody you talk to would say that it becomes an escape for you and part of your personality after a while. And for me, it was the one thing that, my parents would look at me and actually recognize something, and say, right. Oh, that's really great. And so, of course, you want to keep doing that. So, but yeah, I'm the same way. I was drawing since the time I was a little kid and never looked back, really.
And now that I'm thinking about it, if there's one thing, it would actually probably be 9/11 that would bring me into political cartooning. Because before 9/11, I was in college when that happened, and I was drawing on stuff around campus and had a comic strip. I was poking fun. It was kind of an editorial cartoon, but not after 9/11, I started drawing political cartoons.
Good answer.
All right, we have another question asking whether you have done anything yet on Ruth Bader Ginsburg in heaven.
In heaven, I have seen a few cartoons take on her, what she'd be thinking or doing in heaven. I think I remember seeing some suggesting that Donald Trump's coronavirus, she's working her magic upstairs. Let's say that. I haven't depicted her in heaven, but I've drawn Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I've commented on her and her, proposed replacement in the Supreme Court hearings. Amy Coney Barrett, but yeah, I don't know, Rob, do you? I've really only have drawn a couple cartoons ever in my career depicting somebody in heaven, and
well, this is sort of the dreaded topic of the obituary cartoon because I don't know about you, but I really hate them. Because usually, the one thing that an obituary cartoon says that really all it really says is this person died. Now. You can go further and say this person died and they did a lot in their life. And if you can find a way to do that, then I think, that the reason they'll be missed is because of this, then I think that's good. But yeah, I don't really do too many Pearly Gates cartoons.
I've never done a Pearly Gates cartoon. There's only 3 like obit cartoons that I've done that stand out in my mind. I avoid them like you, and I've talked to my editors about it. And to me, I'm wasting an opportunity to make an editorial comment or statement about something important. So the ones I have done have either like really been special to me or just like a community thing. Like when Tim Russert died in Buffalo, and he didn't die in Buffalo necessarily, but I'm just saying like the Buffalo community was mourning. Ralph Wilson, the owner of the Bills, that's another one. And then other than that, Robin Williams, when he died, it was my obit cartoon was more of a comment on depression though. Mm-hmm. In a cage, and it was called The Bird Cage. And I had him, Robin was on his, little stand, and he just looked trapped and the cage was depression. And he looked just very forlorn and just, empty. And it was just a comment that like, you feel how you feel like that you're trapped. I was referencing his acting career, and I got some flack for that. But I actually had a woman call me who was like, I had to talk her off the ledge almost. Like she was in tears saying, how dare I publish that? Yeah. And she was like screaming at me. And it turned out she was very depressed. And then I calmed her down, and she was like, your drawing is exactly how I feel, and how dare you? And I was like, I'm just trying to show everyone how it's not your fault. Like it's a disease, and I'm trying to create some compassion for it. So yeah. I'm with you, obit cartoons. No.
Yeah, generally I don't like them, but it turns out that they're one of the most popular things for readers, because they do find connection there, and it's usually not a political statement necessarily, unless it's a very polarizing figure. But that's why I like them on certain people, like you said. Like I did one for Mr. Rogers when he passed away, and yeah. And that was a very well received cartoon. So there are certain ones that you sort of feel that you need to do, but
right.
But generally, I like to comment on what they did in their life rather than the fact that they are no longer here.
Right.
And I certainly try not to do too many. I have done a few with the Pearly Gates, I'll admit it, but I, then they weren't my best cartoons. So we'll leave it at that.
Before you mentioned Amy Coney Barrett, somebody asked about whether you had done anything with her yet and how you would handle her. So maybe you could speak to how that happened.
Yeah, I think I just finished a cartoon today for tomorrow's paper. Would be my 3rd cartoon that was on Amy Barrett, just because it's huge right now in the confirmation hearings. For me, if you look at like the 2 cartoons that are already published, I mean the first one I drew was just my initial reaction to her selection. Her background was very, she in her dissents and her record and her voting record, she's very anti-women's rights, and it's sort of against a lot of the things that, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was for. So the fact that she is a woman was sort of like Trump and the Republicans' way of saying like, hey, it's okay, she's a woman. So I had an elephant just sort of saying, but she's a woman. And like, she's standing on these, placards and like protest signs of all the, Roe v. Wade, like women's rights, right to choose, like all those things that, are representative of the women's movement. Because she is a certain gender, I think it's meant to soften the blow, that she could be, really repeal a lot of these things and pull it back. So, and that, I did one with her on repealing, having the final nail in Obama and the Affordable Care Act, and then another pro-life cartoon that'll be in tomorrow's paper.
Okay, we have another question that I'm just going to read the whole text here.
Sure.
Adam, you mentioned local cartoons, which of course you do because you're one of the few cartoonists attached to a newspaper. What percentage of your cartoons are local, and do you tend to draw international cartoons because you live on a border?
That's a good question. I think it fluctuates. It depends on the news cycle and what the big stories are. A couple of years back, I do remember having a conversation with my editor. I draw 5 cartoons a week, and I remember the editor told me, the publisher at the time, who Stan Lipsey, he wanted to have a discussion about local work. He had imposed sort of a local quota on the number of editorials that the paper has, which I don't think exists anymore. This was the previous publisher. And I went into his office and talked to him, and he basically was like, look, your local work is great. We love your voice locally, so we want two a week to be local every week out of my 5. And, I made the argument that I would love to have 2. I'd love to have 3 every week of local cartoons, but the nature of what I do, it's not like an editorial where I can just write on a topic. I look at cartoons as, there's a message to it, like in an editorial, but there's a creative concept that expresses that message. And then there's the artwork. And the heart of it's that creative concept. And if you don't have an original, creative, thoughtful, or funny concept for that news story, then you'll be you'll be forcing work that isn't your best just to make a quota. And I told them, if you just, let me do what I do, some weeks I will have 3 or 2, some weeks I'll have none. So it just really depends. And lately, with how the last year or so, or more than last year, how much Trump has dominated the news, I think that the sort of black hole of news that Trump creates, local news takes a hit. And my work, I've drawn fewer local cartoons because people are so focused on the national. And I would say that being on a border city, I do more cartoons on Canada and international as well. So,
speaking of the Amy Coney Barrett cartoon, I just pulled it up here, so I'm going to share my screen to show people your cartoon. I just pulled it up on your syndicate site here. There it is. So there's the one where she's standing on all the signs. I think that's a good caricature. That's nice.
Thanks. After I just got done saying women are hard, I was happy with that one. She's got that kind of really intense look to her.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't too mean. It was fair, I thought.
And then actually, here's another one, and I guess they do it in that's what your black and white cartoon would look like, right?
Right. That's right.
So it says "Final Nail," and it's Amy Coney Barrett's arm, and she's using the judge's mallet to hammer the coffin shut on millions of uninsured. I like this one. I'm going to steal that one.
Nice. Actually, I have the one for tomorrow. I can do a sneak peek here. And
oh, you do? Okay, let me stop sharing. Here we go.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that here. Share screen.
Yeah, I think people like to see things before they appear. Sometimes it's kind of cool. I've done that too, where I'll be giving a talk and the next day's cartoon happens to be on my computer, so I'll say, okay, here it is. Right. Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So this isn't colored yet, but just, it's on, her, but it's just this concept that in the pro-life sort of view of justice, or just like the balance of, one Supreme Court justice is so much more important than how many things that represent death. The death, this administration has brought back the death penalty, 216,000 COVID deaths, and trying to shoot down Obamacare, which is creating more people, it's causing more people to die if you take Obamacare away. But pro-lifers will turn a blind eye to all that just to get a Supreme Court justice that views the same thing on abortion.
Mm-hmm.
This is more of like a thoughtful visual metaphor cartoon, but it's
yeah, but it's a nice use of that scale, because we all sort of look for what metaphors and devices we can use to show the justice, and it's usually Lady Justice with a scale or a sword, and
right.
And this is a nice use of that, because clearly she's not heavier than all of those deaths, but
right.
on the pro-life scale she is.
Yes.
That's really good.
Thanks.